Could you tell me more about Crown Society, also how that came to be, and why it's so significant to you?
Crown Society was birthed from an idea of when I looked around in society and I look at, you had like colors and you had movies about, gang banging and things of that nature. And, you got the bandana with the paisley print,
Mhm.
right? And, or you got the Gucci bandanas. But I feel like those who put out commercial things or those who put out negative things, they put a lot of hard work into the design process to make sure that there's a culture attached to it as well, right? Like symbols are very powerful. They get into our subconscious mind. You can't tell a symbol no, right? There's automatic information and reference attached to symbols, right? There's a feeling attached to when we see a symbol. And so I wanted to put out something that was in reference to a powerful movement, a conscious movement, enlightenment a movement, and I said, what symbols were more powerful than the sun, moon, and stars? Right. And so when you're talking about a society, you're talking about people who are grouped together that have some sort of commonality, right? And so that crown society is those who recognize, that inner part of themselves and they show it in their outer expression by wearing their crown.
How has it helped you grow as a person?
It's a constant reminder because I feel like the crowns, they mean so much to me as far as I always tell people I'm earning my crown. I haven't earned my crown, right? Because anytime you give yourself a crown and it's not given to you, it's a process you have to go to an earning, right?
Mhm.
I weren't born in a royal family, if you will, to where the world knows that, you are amongst the royalty, so-calledly, right? Instead, you have to establish that lineage yourself, right? And being born in America where you're not born with wealth, you're not born with power, you have to establish that wealth and power yourself, right? Even education levels and things of that nature. But for me, it's a divine reminder. It reminds me of something bigger than myself that I'm a part of, right? And it constantly reminds me to strive to be better because I'll never take my crown off, regardless of where I go in all environments. And so for me, it's like bringing my environment with me, right? And people ask me all the time, and people see it, and I'm always in representation of that which I believe.
So, I mean, you talk about the sun, the moon, the stars. Um, are you into astrology?
Yeah, I'm more. I like astrology. I'll say I'm more into astronomy than astrology,
Mhm.
but because I feel like astronomy is more science and astrology can be more guesswork, right? So therefore, but cosmology, the source of the universe and how all things are connected, I would say it's probably more so where I take my source of information, right, and higher thought from when I think about Crown Society. It's more of a cosmological thing.
Okay. You're also into like numerology, like on your website, you have crowns priced at like 444 and 19. So could you tell me how numerology has helped you get in touch with your higher self?
Yeah, so like I was saying, I call myself 19 Keys,
Mhm.
right? And I really take on that. And the idea though, numbers and letters are really the same thing, right? When man was first coming up with the alphabet, each number was in correlation to an alphabet. So, A is one, right? Two is B, three is C, so on and so forth. So, it's a code, it's a coded language. So by calling myself 19, it's the same as somebody else calling themselves Sarah or, whatever their name may be. But particularly the numbers have a deeper, I think, meaning and power because it has a resonance frequency attached to each number, right? There's only nine numbers in the universe, all one through nine exist. And I always tell people, and I'm not the one, I'm one of the ones, right? Because one through nine just represents different ones. So nine ones, eight ones, seven ones, right? And those are different frequencies, and everything exists between that one through nine. And so the way I look at numbers, I believe that it connects us, right, to the frequency of what we are observing, right, or what we are attached to. Two people that speak completely different languages, if they both mathematicians, they can speak the same language. They can understand coordinates. they can understand measurements, right? If they look at it from a microscopic level and they were measuring the cell, they know exactly the properties and what a person was speaking about, right? You're talking about time. If they was talking about different points in time at different specific points in time, they can go directly to that because number has its own language, right? It's really what we regard everything in the world. You can't do much without numbers, right? And so we can't count, we can't move, we don't know anything. And so numbers is, I believe, God's language, right?
Mhm.
When we look at, even in design language, when people looks at design, they look at the golden ratio, right? And that's based on geometrical shapes and patterns. And those particular patterns, right, the Fibonacci sequence or those different patterns can be found all throughout the universe, in spirals and fractals and flowers, right, and into the back of somebody's head and to the universe, right? And understanding the power of numbers allowed you, for me, to be in synchronicity, right? And synchronicity is finding the meaning in the otherwise meaningless, right?
Mhm.
And so I believe that there's a powerful energy when one person is able to attach to the numbers. You're looking beyond all of the language and the things that we have set up in society, and you're looking directly at the universe itself, the properties of the universe itself, right? That which we know about the sun is 93 million miles away, but that number that we know, right, is an idea of a distance that we can calculate, right, to say that this is where something is in the universe that otherwise would be immeasurable to us. So it's a language of understanding things that are not easily understood, right? And so when you think in a logical and rational and a mathematical pattern, it's not much that can't be understood to you, right? All of the secrets of the universe start to unfold because math gives you that ability to understand.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I know that you've been doing this pretty much all your life. You have like a video on your Instagram of you as a child where you're like giving a speech and you sound exactly how you sound now. It doesn't seem like much has changed other than your height. But Google says that, a child's earliest memory can date back to as far as 3 to 4 years old. So I want to know what your earliest memory of, for earliest encounter with spirituality, when was that?
That's a very great question. And nobody usually asks me that question, but I do have a specific memory as a child. And I remember being outside playing in the wind in front of my house, right? Um, and I remember thinking, like, I felt like I was controlling the wind with my powers or something, right? As a kid, our imaginations are beautiful because they're unhindered by realistic thoughts. But I remember this just inner voice that kind of came over me, and it told me very clearly that I was destined to do something great to change the world, right? And it came like before I even understood what the world was, the idea of how to change the world or what that means, it installed this feeling in me, right? That all of the things that I may go through in life, this is just to get me to that point where I change the world. Like I have to go on this process and this path, and it made me feel like I was destined for something, right? And when you can become programmed with something like that, it changes the way you think and the way you feel and what you perceive about every instance in life. Because then you start to apply meaning to everything that you do that is only to get me to the next point where I get to my destiny, right? So it allows you to be more positive because you start to develop a hero's tale, right? That this pain or this journey that I'm going through is just a process of development. And it was different iterations where I feel like that voice had left me and realistic thinking started to settle in, where people tell you to choose a job or career path, or statistically you're going to end up here, or just being in the streets and getting caught up in different situations. And I had the question of, am I still on that path of destiny to do great things?
Mhm.
And, after conquering certain points of my journey, I realized that yes, God was just taking me through the darkness to show me I'm worthy of the light. Right. And so I believe that that voice, for anybody's spiritual interpretation, you can add what that means to you. But, for me, that was that inner God, or that was God, himself just speaking directly to me. And I believe that everybody may have had the moment like that, but oftentimes we forget, right? Oftentimes it's drowned out so much that
Mhm.
if you can't connect back to when you were pure, right, as a child, you don't have nothing to protect. right? And so I've been protecting that inner voice and I've been protecting that destiny my whole life.
I mean, that sounds like a lot for, I mean, for you to say that you've known literally since you were a child. That seems like a pretty big responsibility to carry. Did it ever feel like a burden, or like maybe this is too much for me, or maybe this isn't what I should be doing? Was there any times where you ever felt like any doubt?
Yeah, definitely. That's the darkness. I think the darkness is what I've learned to embrace the darkness because we actually spend a great deal of our lives in the dark. Because if
Mm,
we can't sleep, we can't wake up and think for the next day. If we don't get sleep, we die, literally. So the darkness is necessary. And, I just came from the gym. And if I don't work out and experience daily pain by working out, then I can't get stronger. Right. And so those moments of doubt, I feel like were testing grounds to prove whether I was worthy for what was to come, right? But I've experienced that doubt many of times, losing a job, being, basically technically homeless, right? And thinking about like, is this part of the destiny that I felt,
mm,
or maybe that was just, my childhood, you know, ideas that I need to grow out of, right? Maybe that's not real. And maybe this is the real world, right?
mm,
Like that realistic thinking is the path to mediocrity, right? And so it was about more so reaffirming through those moments of doubt, like, no, that voice was correct. I am that voice, matter of fact, right? And growing up in St. Louis and Oakland, like, I remember literally getting shot at on the street and that voice coming back to my head, like, nah, I can't die here because I'm destined for something else,
mm,
right? And it really literally gave me a positive outlook on situations that normally a person may just seen as like distraught or
yeah.
stressful and gave them anxiety. So yes, I've been through every iteration and feeling of doubt and pain, but on the flip side, I've been through what it takes to dig out of that hole as well. And each time I did that, I became stronger and it became harder to keep me down in that hole.
I mean, with everything that you've gone through, it's obvious you've experienced a lot of trauma. How do you? Sorry, I don't mean to make it sound like that, but I
Obviously,
mean,
no, it's
getting
okay.
shot at is, that's not like the average person doesn't experience that. So that's like a lot to process. Um,
Yeah.
so I want to know, when you are feeling those moments of doubts, who do you go to seek guidance and enlightenment when you're in need of balance?
I think immediately I go to God, like, and for me, going to God is, finding silence,
Mm-hmm.
like I think I've experienced anxiety in the last maybe month or so. And just when I mean by anxiety, identifying it as anxiety, right? Like a rush of thoughts that feel uncontrollable. And I'm like, this is not me. Why is it constantly taking over my brain? And what I had to do is I had to figure out a point to seek above that, right? And then when I found that zone of silence, I found comfort again. And that's where I could hear God talking to me like, all right, you good. And, but beyond that, it was my older brother, right? My older brother now has mental health conditions to where, he's not the person that I can go to because he's not the person he used to be. And then in certain situations, it was my father, right? But I would ask him in very specific situations when it came to just being a man, because growing up with him, that's who I seen as an example through observation of what a man was. So
Mm-hmm.
in certain situations, when I needed strength, I would ask him what was his thinking, because I know he was always going to give me a particular type of masculine thinking. And then my mother, right? And my mother was more so a person I asked about my heart, to make sure that my heart and my morals was in the right place when I'm making a decision,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I believe that each person should have somebody that they go to for different things, right? Like, who's that person you go to for your heart? Who's that person you go to for your mind, right? But you have to have a relationship with divine source. You have to have a relationship with God, and you have to have the ability to trust yourself. Because if I can't trust myself, then nothing that I tell myself matters, right? And so I really trust myself in the sense that, okay, when you calm down and you sit and you think, the answers that you come up with, I know that those are divine. I know that those are right, and I will follow that, right? And so I've learned to trust myself over the years when it comes to getting myself out those situations. And I believe that the more you do that, the more, you know, the more habit forming it becomes when when a problem or issue pops up. Your brain is so ready to deal with it that this becomes, easy, unless there's something that's just completely out of your wheelhouse and out of your experience that you've never dealt with before. But I believe I've built up a great internal process of dealing with issues, problems, pains, situations to handle them in a very expressive and positive manner so that I don't hold on to them, right? And so my first iteration to solving any internal problem is always forgiving myself, then dealing with that situation.
Yeah, I mean, you talk a lot about financial prosperity, but how that's essentially not possible without investing in yourself mentally and spiritually. So it seems like mental health is really important to you, as it should be for everybody. Um, how do you how do you manage social media? Because I know sometimes you have clips from like maybe your podcast or maybe when you're on someone else's platform that will go viral and it can cause a lot of controversy. Um, how do you manage backlash on social media?
I think having an understanding that once you get to a certain point on these platforms, right? I was walking through the airport and I had my hoodie on. And there's a type of hoodie that can go over your face essentially. And basically all my was shown was my eyes and eyebrows. And the dude walked up to me, it's like 19 keys, you ain't fooling nobody. And I just realized I reached the point where, I feel like my crown used to be the real identifying marker, and now it's like, my whole face.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get to certain points of popularity or fame or whatever you may call, and where you have to realize that you're going to create certain reactions in the world and society, and certain opinions are going to trigger people based on the varying different points that they are in life. Right. And so I don't do it to trigger people, but I understand even if you're not saying something triggered, depending on the amount of people that you reach statistically, somebody's not going to like what you're going to say.
Mm-hmm.
And we often highlight the negative, even though they're literally the smallest percentage, right, of the commentary that is the feedback, right? But they stand out, right? You ask people about the bad things that happen in their life, and they can recall that faster than the good things that have happened in their life, right? Because those things emotionally charge us and they get directly connected to our memories and we never forget them. And so what I've learned that, it's okay for people to love or hate you. That just means they have feelings for you, right? That's it. Love and hate are feelings. I don't want to be liked. Like people that are liked are easily forgettable, right? You can't make an impact with things that are just liked. It has to be loved or hated, right? And so I don't I don't like to straddle in that middle ground because that's not where you get a person to really think. They have to walk away questioning themselves, right? The idea, I think the word trigger is a word that is maybe overused now because people vocabulary is just used to saying it. But sometimes, what you consider to be a trigger is a reflection, it's contemplation, right? It's getting people to now question, reprogram, right, their own cognitive biases and their own confirmation biases that they seek when we're in silos of social media. And so, I don't think like other people. So therefore, I'm not going to give you a perspective that's going to reinforce what you already think. I'm going to give you a perspective that challenges the way that you think.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are a person that seeks intellectual discourse to grow, then you're going to appreciate that whether you agree or disagree. But if you're a person that only seeks confirmation to approve your biases in the way that you already think, and you don't have a way to really back up what you already think, you're going to get angry, right? It's going to make you mad. So now you're mad at me, but you're really not. You're mad at yourself for not really having a solid argument for what you believe,
And
right? Not really having a solid reason.
yeah.
So that comes out in the force of, oh, I don't like 19 keys. No, you don't like your own beliefs because you can't back them up. And something just challenged you and you feel like you may be wrong.
Okay. Well, that's definitely an interesting way of looking at it. I know like you're all about reprogramming the mind based on what we consume or don't consume. How do you manage the content you post? or don't post on social media, or how much time you spend on there? It seems like you post often, but do you try to stay off of social media for the most part, or how does that go?
Yeah, I think currently I need to do a social media diet. I think I found myself unnecessarily engaging in social media for no reason, right? And it have no importance towards my visions or my goals, right? So I think a very disciplined version of myself is when everything that I consume have something to do with my goal or my vision, right? And that goes to people that I talk to, things that I look at, whatever it may be. That consumption has to be feeding my vision and my goals in some sort of way, right? And so on social media, for me, posting is easy, because if it has something to do with, right, I can have an opinion about something that I just see in society that I feel like is dangerous and that needs to be spoken on and challenged, or it can be something good that I feel like needs to be highlighted, right? Or, it can be just me promoting a clip from somebody's shows, and that's my way of showing support or getting a particular message out that I said on their platform that I may have not said on my own platform,
Mhm.
right? And I used to have a post 3 times a day, but now it's more so, post important things every day, things that really resonate with me. And maybe, throughout that day, I didn't find nothing I feel like that resonated that was necessary throughout this day. So I posted nothing, right? But the clip before that may have been enough that a person should just seek and soak in, because by posting, you're setting up expectation, right? If you see me post about masculinity 10 times in a row, you're going to expect the next post to be about masculinity, right? And so mine is a variety, right? Mine is a variety of ideas, thoughts, perspectives, challenges, news, brands, information, things of that nature that I feel like connect to me as 19 Keys and represent who I am, what I'm going through, and what I'm thinking about at that point in time and moment, and or what is connected to my business, because some of it is just business where I have to promote the things that I have going on. Otherwise, people don't see it. Social media is a business that is built on human attention, right? So converting that human attention into capital and resources is how you're able to grow and expand your empire. Specifically, me, I'm utilizing media right now. And so with high level conversations, that one we have very great organic reach because we found the formula that works for us, right? The different elements and things of that nature that we talk about are usually the things that are unspoken of, right? And it seems that people don't know how to communicate about interesting things anymore. So we try to have those high level conversations that people are not having, right? Each platform is putting out the same gossip, rumorville, consistent over and over. So we want to be a breath of fresh air. Like finally, somebody's talking about something other than what's on this blog site or what happened to this unimportant person.
Yeah.
So, for me, I want my social media to curate what I want to see.
And last question, how do you feel 2023 will be different for you?
Oh man, 2023 is a beautiful year already turning up. I think this will be a great year of expansion for me, right? I think I've built a lot of different things, and this will be a great year where I get to leverage the things that I built, right? It's not about me showing up to every party. It's not about me showing up to every event. None of those. I went through that journey of proving to myself who I am, right? And now I think I'm on this showcase of showing the world who I truly am, right? I wanted to be a master speaker, and now my goal is to be a master teacher, right?
Mhm.
I have several brands under the Goldwater, under the Crown Society, family businesses, I have the high level conversations and BWO and all these partnerships. And now it's about focusing on those to expand them to, just their higher limits, right? To see where these things can go. And so we have some great things lined up, some great partnerships lined up. And I believe that I want to show the world the way it's supposed to be done in the manner that people will feel like, damn, I didn't even think that that could be done. I didn't think it could be done at the highest level. Because it's not just about high level conversations, it's about high level execution.
Very well said. Thank you for speaking with me. I know you're very busy, so thank you for taking the time out to speak with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time out to speak with me. I appreciated this interview. This is very well. I appreciated your questions as well.
Thank you, of course. So I am excited to see, what else we can expect from you for the rest of the year. Do you have anything coming up that you want to talk about or that you can talk about?
Yeah, I have a really big workshop that I'm doing with Mr. Billy Carson. Um, and it is centered around, decoding the formula of a supermind. All
Mm,
right. And I believe that me and Mr. Billy Carson have built our mental abilities up to a certain level, right? Our ability to think. I believe society is losing its ability to think clearly, right? Like we barely know how to spell anymore, right? Because we have autocorrect, right? And now it's getting to a point where you don't even have to correctly write a sentence. AI will finish it for you and create prompts and responses. And you're only as good as your ability to think, no matter how much machinery we add to it. And so developing a supermind is really about how do you become a high level thinker, right? The reason most people are intrigued by high level conversations, right? Because they're looking at two minds coming together and they're utilizing those minds fully in that moment to engage, right? To fully have thought out responses, to be well researched, to be well articulated, all of those different things. And so we came coming together to do a workshop that we believe is giving away our codes on how we built ourselves up, right? And giving those mental codes to the world that they can utilize, especially during this time of artificial intelligence,
mhm,
right? Our next high level conversation is actually about artificial intelligence wars versus natural intelligence, which is a process of how human beings normally learn, and artificial intelligence is replicating that. So that's going to be a huge. We have some things coming up in Toronto. I can't announce all the way yet. We have some things with Dame Dash, and I'm working on trying to do some movies and glasses and all sort of different products that we are planning on pushing out going into 2023. Like I said, this is the year of expansion.
mhm. All right. It definitely sounds like you have a packed schedule for the rest of the year, but I'm definitely excited to see, what you're cooking up, everything that you plan on releasing. And yeah, thank you again for speaking with me. This was a great conversation. So yeah,
Likewise, you have a beautiful and blessed day.
thank you. You too.